Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 2 of Tour of Suisse. Now this is just under a 200 kilometer stage. They're going to have a circuit of about 50 kilometers of length with 2 climbs at the finish within that circuit. And then one's going to be 3 kilometers, the first one at just over 7%. And then the last climb of today's stage 2, that's going to be a bit harder. It's going to be about 6 kilometers, just there over, and about 6.5%. Now, that starts at about 15 kilometers to go, so you know if it's 6K long, then that's going to bring us right there to just about 14 kilometers to go when you start descending and going all the way into the finish of today's stage 2. Camera comes on, it's just under 60 kilometers to go, and the breakaway up the road is shattered in pieces and kind of all over the place. Originally, the GCN commentators here told me that there was 11 guys in the front break. We'll see Leonardo Basso, Imhoff, the Swiss team, and Simon Zwitzoff, yesterday's rider in the break. All 3 of those riders, we'll see those guys come back to the peloton. And when the cameras move up forward, we have 7 riders in the break currently, just under 6 minutes. Those 7 riders in the break, they have Michael Schar from AG2R up there, Jonas Rusch from EF Education, Matteo Badilate from FDJ, Matthew Holmes from Lotto, Joel Suter from UAE Team Emirates, Matthew Bergerdo from Total Energies, and Andreas Luknesson from DSM. Now those 7, they'll reach the circuit here with about a 5-minute lead. Behind in the peloton, it's being led there by Bahrain Victorious, who still have 7 riders in this front group called the peloton. But they only have 1 rider on the front, and they got some help by Quick Step there. Bora Hansgrohe and Ineos are all riding the front with 1 Bahrain Victorious. Now, with about 45 kilometers to go, that's when they're going to hit this first climb. And up front, we're going to see Joel Sutter from UAE Team Emirates. He's coming out the back. Up front, just after Joel Sutter's coming out the back, Michael Schar is having some problems. And the FDJ rider, Badilate, he's coming out the back. We'll see Michael Schar. He'll accelerate on the pedals to get himself back up to the front because it's Luknesson, Andreas Luknesson from DSM that's throwing in a bit of an acceleration here with 45 kilometers to go on this first climb of the final circuit here on stage 2. Now, Michael Schar will get back on. They'll go over the top with 5 riders here at the KOM, and then it'll take the FDJ rider a little bit longer, Badilate, to get back up to the front group. He's going to have to chase for 7-8 kilometers before he gets back up there and makes the group 6 again. Now, with that group up the front, they're going to come up to some time bonuses, and we're going to see the sprint here, and it's going to be Andreas Luknesson that takes the first time bonuses. Right behind on his wheels going to be the other guys who are riding at 1 minute and 1 second back on the general classification here of race leader Stephen Williams from Bahrain Victorious. After the time bonus sprint, we're going to see an interview from Søren Kragh Andersen. With this interview, Søren Kragh Andersen from DSM is talking about why yesterday's stage was so hot. The heat was high and a lot of the riders were having problems. Now, when we get back up to the front group, like I said, the FDJ rider Badilate found his way back up to that group, and their time gap is still looking pretty sizable with a good shot, 50-50, let's call it, to be able to have a chance at winning today's stage. The question is, can they gain enough time so that the riders in that front group that are only 1 minute and 1 second back on the general classification, less now with that time bonus for Luknesson, who grabbed 3 seconds. Now, when we start looking at the peloton behind, it's Tim de Klerk that gets on the front from Quick Step. He's driving, he's a train motor back there, Diesel just driving on the front, and he's holding all that breakaway riders up front in check, giving everyone in the field still here with a chance at winning stage 2. The problem is, Bahrain Victorious is not jumping in. Tim de Klerk up front, he has some help from Ineos, and he has some help from Bora Hansgrohe. Bora Hansgrohe have at least 3 guys on the general classification with a shot at winning here at Tour of Suisse. They have Vlasov, who put on a show yesterday, Max Schachmann, who went second on the stage and sitting high up on the general classification, and then Agita, who can climb and sprint pretty good in a small group. That leaves Bora Hansgrohe with a shot at winning general classification here at Tour of Suisse. Ineos have Adam Yates and Geraint Thomas. So they got reasons. Quick Step with Tim de Klerk on front. He's got a reason because Remco Evenepoel looked solid on yesterday's stage 1. So all 3 teams have a reason to keep this front group of 6 under check. but they don't have a reason necessarily to bring this back, and they don't have a reason to worry about general classification hope riders up there. So if the yellow jersey changes hands, you got to believe that Bahrain Victorious would be upset, but they're gambling everything right now after this first categorized climb finished here on stage 2, and they won't get on the front again, even though many times throughout today's stage, when the cameras spanned back in the peloton, I always saw 7 Bahrain Victorious in this front group, and they're not willing to ride anyone. With that problem of Bahrain Victorious not willing to work, every time Tim DeClercq hits a little climb, we start seeing the peloton go curb to curb and slowing down. So whatever time they're gaining on the descents and the flats on that front group of 6, now they're giving up when they slow down to go up these next little bumps here at Tour of Suisse before this final and last climb starts with 20 kilometers to go. Now up front, just before the climb starts, that group of 6, you can tell it's hot because it's Matthew Holmes up there. He's spraying water all over himself, trying to cool himself down because this has been a hot stage here on stage 2 with only 20 kilometers left. And they started with 200 kilometers when they started the race at kilometer 0. So this is 180 kilometers later. They're getting ready to start the final climb. So with just under a 2-minute lead to that breakaway up front when they start this final climb, you know it's going to be a big effort if the riders up front in this group of 6 want a shot at winning here at stage 2. Now behind, when they hit the climb, it's Tim DeClercq. He's done all the work from at least 35, 40 kilometers to go in today's stage, all the way to the final KOM here starts with 20 kilometers. Tim DeClercq pulls off. The peloton slows down. The group of 6, they start attacking each other. And first rider to attack is Matthew from Total Energy. He throws in attack, and then it's countered right away from Andreas Luknesen because the time gap was getting down to about 1 minute and 35 seconds. The DSM rider, he wants a shot at winning here on stage 2 and possibly putting himself into yellow jersey. Luknesen accelerates quick on the pedals. He opens a gap to his breakaway companions quickly right behind him, and they start falling apart going up this final climb. Luknesen's driving hard, tongue hanging out. You know he's giving 100%. His jersey's covered in salt. Now behind in the GC group of favorites, it's Alpecin Phoenix that's going to get on the front when the time gap's at about 1:45. With the pace change of Alpecin Phoenix on the front, it's Peter Sagan. Total Energy's coming out the back for a second time here at Tour of Suisse. We saw him get dropped early on yesterday's stage with 20 kilometers to go. Now we're just under 20 kilometers to go, and Peter Sagan is getting dropped again. The Total Energy rider has got to find some form before July starts. I don't see it happening, though, at this point in time when I'm sitting up here on the butterfly effect. There's a little bit of company from Bahrain Victorious as they lose one of their riders going up the road, and shortly after that, a second Bahrain Victorious rider will come out the back. Up front, Andreas Luknesen, he's still pedaling hard, going over the top of the KOM with a gap on all his breakaway companions. He won't see them again, and they'll all get wrapped up before the final of today's stage. With Luknesen diving down the descent and bombing through the corners, he's not going to give up much time to the Alpecin Phoenix guys behind. Now, Alpecin Phoenix, I don't know exactly what they're doing right here, but for certain they are saving any chance at the yellow jersey for Williams from Bahrain Victorious to be able to keep that jersey and continue to hold it later. Again, Bahrain Victorious, I don't know what they're doing. They started this final climb with 7 riders. Now, they lost 2 right away going up the climb, but they never put them on the front to help pull this breakaway of 6 back at any point in time after they went up the first climb up with 50 kilometers to go here on stage 2. With that time gap up front now, with Luknesen just bombing down the descent. Today's finish, after they came off the KOM, it was a fast descent. They're doing maximum speeds back there, 80, 90 kilometers an hour. And when they finally come off the climb, it doesn't just end there. There's pitches of dropping down, small little climbs coming up, and every time Luknesen up front hits any kind of bump in the road, we see him out of the saddle, tongue hanging out, throwing down on the pedals as hard as he can to keep the speed going up every one of these bumps to the finish here with 10 kilometers to go. Behind, Alpecin Phoenix is having a little bit of help from Intermarché, but Bahrain Victorious still won't get on the front, and up front, Luknesen's gap is still at a minute. At this point in time, let me remind Bahrain Victorious that the DSM rider can still pull the yellow jersey off of Stephen Williams' back here if the gap still stays at a minute when they cross the finish line of today's stage. It's 1 kilometer to go. The gap is still doable for Luknesen to take the yellow jersey. He's certainly going to win the stage. We'll see him look back with about 300 meters to go. When he does, he realizes the peloton's too close for him to take the yellow jersey, so he's going to celebrate his first big win here on stage 2 of Tour of Suisse. Congratulations to the DSM rider. and to the DSM team because they rode fantastic here with Luknison being aggressive in that front group. Now behind there's a sprint and it's EF Education back there. Alberto Bettiol that wins the sprint for second, but he thinks he gets the win for first as he raises his arms and celebrates, beating Michael Matthews Bike Exchange back there for a podium spot here, but not for the win. Alberto Bettiol celebrating after the line, and he'll get a little bit of harass from the other riders back there after he realizes that he got second on the stage and not first. He gives a great interview afterwards and accepting that he made a mistake on the stage. But there was a lot of mistakes being made on today's stage. It just wasn't Alberto Bettiol. In my mind, sitting up here on the butterfly effect, Bahrain Victorious cut it too close because up front, Andreas Luknison, he almost got the yellow jersey, only lost it by 7 seconds on today's stage. Now, when I look at Bahrain Victorious, why would you want to give up the yellow jersey? At no point in time after that first KOM, when they got on the circuit, when that KOM finished, did we see their team getting on the front and doing any kind of damage. And so that's what's causing all the dilemma of today's stage. None of the other teams, the GC teams, they don't have a reason to bring back Andreas Luknison or anyone in that front group of 6. They're already a minute and 1 second down at best up there, so there's no reason for anyone back there to be pulling that hard if you're racing for GC. Bahrain Victorious, when you look at their squad, they don't have pure climbers anyways. They still had 7 guys in that front group, and yet they're not helping Bora Hansgrohe, Ineos, and Quick-Step ride the front. So with that, the other teams are just going to go, okay, well, we'll just ride for GC. We won't ride for the stage. And that's why we see Williams just barely holding on to the race leader's jersey here after stage 2 by just 7 seconds to the gap up there to Andreas Luknison from DSM. It was a very strange stage. It was hard to read from sitting on the couch, and all the commentators I was listening to were having the same problems I were. Difficult to read, but when you analyze it later after the race, it makes it a whole lot easier to understand. I would assume the racing was really hard for the first 150 kilometers, and then when they get on the circuit with only one Bahrain Victorious working on the front who stopped after the first KOM climb, at that point in time, the other teams, why would they chase? They're not going to get yellow out of the stage. Nobody's really got pure sprinters here that can guarantee a stage win on stage 2. So Bahrain Victorious were taking a big gamble, in my opinion, with the yellow jersey of Stephen Williams here on stage 2. Now, we got more racing coming, and Tour of Swiss means more climbing. So make sure you guys like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next edition real soon.